Welcome back to V Buzz. My name is Alan Sinclair and my co-host Dal Baptist right here. Every company has a culture. The only question is how its leaders choose to steer the management and values of the company. Even non-profits have their own set of core values and management style. For instance, most non-profits tend to focus on the cost first and then the finances later. Several experts believe that the non-profit sector could benefit from adopting corporate values in their governance, and we chat with one of these experts who is also a familiar face in the V Buzz studio. Dr. Sudeep Mohandas is a non-profit management consultant and the founder of iFirst International, and he joins us now to discuss this further. Welcome to the show once again, Dr. Sudeep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Always a pleasure having you, Doctor. Now, let's start by opening with, why is setting a certain culture for non-profit, why is this important?
Well, we'll have to first, let's underline that word culture, and then we'll underline the word importance. When we talk about culture, just imagine a bowl of soup, and you've got to put a few ingredients in it. One of those things would be values, beliefs, and assumptions. And when we talk about values, really what we're referring to is conduct. The kind of conduct you expect from the staff or from the people and all that. And then you talk about beliefs, and beliefs really are referring to moral compass or your ethics compass and how you... And then you talk about assumptions, for example, things you don't ask but you expect. For example, if you're an environmental organization, you expect people to be doing recycling or not using polystyrene. So all that, put it into a soup, that's what we really mean by a culture, an organization culture. So when we talk about the importance of organization culture in a non-profit, what we're really talking about is all these ingredients.
So do you think it's a huge problem, Doctor, that a lot of non-profit organizations are not actually accepting or adopting this culture?
So I go back to this soup element. If one ingredient is not really doing well, then you can see whether it really tastes well or not. So focusing on really whether it's the values or the beliefs or the assumptions is really what actually is the crux of the matter.
Great, Doctor. But what are some of the distinct differences between non-profits and corporate organizations? I mean, how do they differ in behavior, values, and management?
Well, again, I go back to that element, I call it the soup. This is soup.
Very important.
Yeah, very important, right? You can decide what kind of soup, but that ingredient in soup is important. When we talk about the values of that soup, what are we talking about? The conduct. And what are we talking when we say about the conduct? Really is the policies that come out. And remember, when you come up with policies, it actually tends to bring out a certain behavior. If you put a policy that says you must come at 9 o'clock, you're going to get a kind of behavior of people that only come at 9 o'clock. If you say you're 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, you have flexi system, a certain kind of behavior comes out. So the corporates have actually adapted to this because they want a certain behavior that to come out from their staff such that they become excellent. But in a non-profit, that is still something not actually thought about enough. What kind of behavior do we want from our team? And you have to go backwards again. What kind of nutrition are you going to take? That soup.
Now, what are some of the examples, though? That, you just mentioned timing and the flexi timing, but what are some of the other examples of corporate values that non-profits should adopt?
So there are many, and in most cases, most leaders in non-profits, they aspire to some of these non-profits where they look at things like how they actually retain people, branding, or even in terms of how they manage their risk. These are some of the three, I would say, some of the three highlights you consider.
Why are these three so important?
Well, if you look, let's say, at risk, most cases in non-profits, they're dealing with things of impact, things that are actually going to make a difference to the world. And most times, they don't actually have enough resources or thought or thinking into what's going to be the future like, what's the scenario. So the risk aspect is not really thought through. And that's something they should bring in from the corporate. Brand. Most non-profits have a good brand, but they don't realize the reputation of their brand can actually turn them this way or that way, right? And people will donate for that particular reason. And then we talk about things like your talent. At the end of the day, most non-profits are determined by their pool of good resources. They work because of people. It's the capital. It's really what it is. So how do you retain them? And the more you train them, you build them up, and then they leave, it takes a lot of time and resources, more so in a non-profit than a corporate.
Especially when they leave, right? Then you got to get somebody new comes in, and then you got to retrain the person again.
It's similar to a corporate, but in a non-profit, it's not as if you can get ready-made people who know about, for example, child issues or cancer issues or this or that. It's not that available.
True.
You know?
But would passion play a big role, though? I mean, like hiring people into non-profits and training them again.
Oh, certainly. Passion is definitely key. But in nowadays, a lot of people are passionate even in the corporate. You know, I'm passionate to work for Apple, for example. I'm passionate to work for IT. They are passionate in any kind of thing. So I won't put passion really up there, but I would say it's a very important component. It drives someone, and more for the millennials today, to moving forward. Yeah.
And how does adopting corporate values contribute to the governance and management of a non-profit organization?
Okay, so let's look at this way. When we talk about governance and management, really it is about control.
Yeah.
How do you actually bring out the best control such that you can make the best impact? And in corporates, most organizations, when they go in this direction of trying to make good control, they set up policies, good systems, procedures and all that, and they expect people to follow through. But in a corporate, it's actually very top-down. In a non-profit, it's very different. It's opined by the back on the basis that it's on opinions, consultative. You get people and have discussions. So that's where some of the subtlety differences come in. And so where you can bring that into a corporate, into a non-profit is basically whether you can, if you're very sure you have the consultative aspect, you have the element of actually engagement. Those are some of the things that you can think about.
Yeah, but you just mentioned that, you know, in a corporate sector, it's very top-down sort of management and how they apply these rules. Can that approach sort of be applied to a non-profit sector?
It can. Depending on how large this organization, in some circumstances you have the bureaucracy that comes in. But in most non-profits it is difficult because at the end of the day, everyone you hire is passionate about the cause, the mission. And when everyone is passionate, they all want to have a stake in it. They all want to be counted. From the element of the driver all the way up to the CEO, they all have a voice and they all need to be heard. So that's a very subtle difference between you have a corporate and all that, you know.
You know, because you know why, when everyone's like Doctor said, you know, everybody has a say, but don't you think that this, it goes with the saying where, against your soup story, too many cooks will always spoil the soup?
Oh yeah, too many cooks will spoil the soup. Well, yeah, maybe too many soups spoil the cook. But I mean, at the end of the day, what I think the issue is, yes, you're right. I mean, depending on what you want to do and how you want to do it. I think at the end of the day, what I just mentioned about those ingredients for the soup, that's important. But the peripheries, how you actually present it, how you actually address it, the timing, when you give it, all those actually matter.
This management thing is very, very important. You know, it's very important. I think it's especially for non-profits. But how can modeling the management operations of a corporate company be useful to non-profit organizations if their goals are totally different?
Okay, so let's take a simple example. I remember a story when we were trying to actually change the facade of our bathroom in the office. And most people in the staff were very upset about that because they were saying, why are you using donors' money to change the bathroom? Now, you and I would think that that doesn't make much of an issue. It should be, but actually it was an issue. People are very particular about where the money is going. But then what happened was, against most notions, we changed the bathroom and made it much more presentable and all that. And lo and behold, after a few months, we found out that bathroom was the most used compared to other bathrooms. So sometimes it takes a bit of while for people to understand the needs of that. And so when I go back to your question about the corporates, well, that's where it is. A lot of corporates know that at the end of the day, the way things are presented, how things are actually managed, how things are run, and it's been tested. It actually works. These subtle things, it takes a while to get into a non-profit thinking because at the end of the day, you're getting donor money. And people will question, why should that donor money be used for something else when it should be used for the impact, the cost?
But you mentioned that these corporate values work and it's been tested and it's been proven that it works. Why then are staff still sort of generally wary of instilling corporate values?
Well, again, go back to that toilet bathroom issue, basically. They are wary simply because, at the end of the day, they're not consulted. Most times, they want to be consulted for certain of these decisions. You know, where is that money going to go? Why are we spending more money on this and not on that? Most cases, in a corporate setup, the management makes decisions of where money goes and all. But in a non-profit, most staff would like to know transparency. Where is that money going to? You got about 100,000 donation from this donor. Where's that money going to? Why is it not going when it should be going? That's the big tussle.
But that would be the grey line.
That is
the grey line. I mean, how do you differentiate? Because I would safely say maybe 95% of the non-profits around the world operate using donors' money.
Absolutely.
Unless they have a different a module of running the office, or unless someone comes and say, you know what, I'll give you like 20 million ringgit, and this is for or use it for your operations costs, but don't touch the donors' money.
Correct.
Right. But what I'm trying to say, okay, so because everybody wants to work towards the corporate way of running things, especially for non-profits, right? So do you think they should be paid, the staffs of non-profits should be paid equally as the corporate companies as well?
Oh, I'm very much for that. I think there's another subtle element we have to understand.
Yeah.
The difference in the corporate is, if you look at board members, most of them are actually paid, and their focus is on the dividend or the profit line. But board members in a non-profit actually are volunteers.
Okay.
Most of them are volunteers. They don't get paid. They do that because they're passionate and they're need.
All right.
So the conversation that goes inside into a boardroom or
Very
management is
different.
very different.
Very different, yeah.
Your priorities are very different. In fact, the same board member I have seen actually who sit in a corporate will say, yes, we have to pay for all the staff a very high salary, give them good increments because we want to take. That same board member could move into a non-profit and say, no, I don't think we should pay too much for the staff.
Yeah.
We should keep the money down so that we can actually spend more money. That conversation will just turn simply because of the hat they wear.
All right. Well, what's your opinion, though?
I feel very strongly that non-profits should be paid well.
Should be paid well.
Should be paid well. And the reason why is because I think they're doing excellent. They're actually doing, if I may use these words, God's work. Yeah. Okay? Because at the end of the day, if you're actually trying to help humanity, you're helping the planet, helping the environment, then shouldn't you be paid more than raping the environment and destroying humanity?
Very good point.
Fair enough.
Very good point.
That makes sense. Now, having this conversation with you just sort of enlightened to us like why adopting corporate culture and values in a non-profit is pretty important. But let's say a non-profit has been running for a while now and they're looking to reshape their culture and management. Where on earth did they start?
Yeah. Now that's always a crux because it depends on where they are on the curve.
Yeah.
If they are at the tail end where they're more like flattering out in terms of it's very different from they're a startup. So if you look at a startup, if they're actually starting and they've been there in the business for 5 years and they want to move and they want to actually adopt these kind of things, I think the best way is, first of all, look at their policies and procedures that actually work. Look at how they can manage their finance better. How can they actually raise more income and how can they retain their staff? Those I think are very critical. But if they're more on the element where they are now becoming very successful, but it becomes a different conversation, then it's about brand. They should look at their brand a lot more. They should listen to the voice of their communication, how they really heard, and also risk the scenarios. What is the scenario for tomorrow? Today they may be reputable, but tomorrow may not, simply because there are many competitors out there.
Earlier you mentioned sustainability, like everybody, you mentioned offset to me that everybody nowadays, all the millennials want to get into this race, this social good. Yeah. But you said the most important thing about that is to remain sustainable. How can a business sort of,
a non-profit
nowadays, how can we ensure that we remain sustainable?
So there are many tools out there, and one of those things to actually look at being sustainable would be certainly about looking at keeping money aside for tomorrow. So although they may be raising certain money, but put some money aside. Think about tomorrow and put that money aside. The second thing is also about making sure you keep your costs low. In most cases, they keep a lot of spending is going, but maybe that's bleeding. That means it's just money is just going out. But the other thing is also about try to find more benefits in kind. Most times we look for cash, but you can actually get benefit in kind. Instead of buying stuff, you can actually get it in kind, furniture and what have you, So there are ways to work about it in a short term. If you're looking at long-term sustaining, then you have to have a real clear direction in terms of your strategy and where your roadmap is and all that. That's very important. But there are certain tools that come in. For example, you can test out whether they're resilient, whether they actually can actually last the long leg, the last mile and whatever it is. So there are many things to attach to that.
Okay. Great insights, Dr. Sudeep. Thank you so much once again for coming on the show.
Thank you.
You're always welcome here. We'll be seeing you again next month.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Great insights,
Yeah.
And Daryl, I got to say this, man. This whole non-profit thing. You do know that I run this thing in India.
Yeah,
so
you
giving out
mentioned
water
earlier.
and so forth. So when Doctor earlier mentioned about furnitures, I managed to go around and getting all these other offices to donate furnitures for us.
That was one of your ways.
Yeah, that's one of my way to like, not spend money on
good
furnitures.
job.
Yeah.
Good job indeed.
Thank you.
Awesome stuff, man. Well, that's wraps up the interview for today. But tomorrow on V Buzz, guys, what are your thoughts on goal setting? I set myself this goal of going to the gym, and I went, but I don't know, the results are a bit iffy. Now, is it a pain in the neck that gets you stressed out, or do goals help you focus? We'll find out what NLP practitioner and motivational speaker Wesley Chan has to say on this subject.
And we'll chat with the co-founder of a rather innovative platform that aims to take the chaos out of childcare.
As always, guys, keep writing to us at vbuzz@astro.com.my and follow us on Instagram at vbuzz_HD.
Yeah, till then, sayonara.
All right, my name is Daryl Baptist.
Alvin Sinclair.
Selamat Hari Raya once again, guys. Good night.